Please remember to like, subscribe, and never forget to ring that bell.
Well then, what's going on, everybody? I am Chris Knight. This is Chaos Central's The Star Wars Senate, where we get together and discuss all sorts of things Star Wars, be it EU, be it, the original trilogy, prequels. The first episode we had, we had a lovely discussion on our ranking of all the Star Wars live action films. Maybe we'll go back on another one and we'll talk about the animated stuff or mix the animated stuff in. I'm not sure. It's always a toss up of what we're going to discuss, but we were on a idea and a topic, I believe on one of the Chaos Central shows, about does the prequels break canon of the original trilogy? And so that is what this discussion is going to be. And I have a great group of people who are here. As you know, the Star Wars Senate is comprised of a lot of people, but not everybody can make it every time. And so today we have 6 other people joining me, possibly more here in a little bit. We'll see what happens, but we're going to bring them up one at a time and let them introduce themselves. First up is Mr. Nindroid243. Nindroid, what is going on? Why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Okay, you guys can find me on my own YouTube channel, Nindroid243, where I talk about Star Wars. I do edits regarding Star Wars movies and shows. Currently working on episode 9 still, and just got done Kenobi, believe it or not. So yeah, go check me out. Thank you, Chris, for having me on, and yeah.
Yeah, very good. Glad to have you back on. I think you were on the first one, weren't you?
Yeah. Yes.
I believe you were. All right. Up next is Jason of Sci-Fi for Me TV. What's going on?
Howdy. Yeah. It was... So yeah, Sci-Fi for Me is an online magazine. We've been covering science fiction, fantasy, horror since 2009. And we've got this channel, and we just launched our second channel, TV.2, which is going to be our experimental, all the pre-recorded stuff. So we'll see how that does. So anyway,
hey,
that's where we are.
Trust me, I help run 3 channels, and it can be daunting.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? I like the idea because it helps also like kind of segregate stuff and move stuff around, and you can do certain things on one.
I keep hearing stuff about the YouTube algorithm doesn't like hybrid channels like ours because we do live stuff, we do pre-recorded stuff, and YouTube doesn't know what to do with it. So we'll see what this does.
But I haven't seen any absolute proof of that. And then again, I've heard people say, only do one topic, don't do many topics, only do one, like only do Orville or Star Wars, or I don't think anybody understands the YouTube algorithm, and I don't think even YouTube understands the YouTube algorithm.
Well, they keep changing it because now the emphasis is on shorts. And
I know.
We want to be like TikTok, whatever.
All right, let's bring up Mr. Danny Graham of Comic Chat, and Mr. Danny Graham, of course, is one of the people here on Chaos Central that helped me out. He has a Monday night show. But Danny, go ahead and tell everybody about yourself.
What up? I'm Danny Graham, aka Comic Chat. You can find me here on Chaos Central, usually 3 nights a week, sometimes 4, depending on who's hosting what type of show we're going to be discussing that particular night. I'm ready to talk about Star Wars, one of my favorite subjects. The IP. Oh, Lord, I hope it comes back. I'm seeing glimpses here and there. Obi-Wan was a good glimpse. Mandalorian Season 2 was a good glimpse. So maybe they'll keep going in the right direction. So fingers crossed.
I think that's what we all hope. So up next, let's bring up Drew, Supreme Heretic. How you doing, Drew? Oh, you're muted. Pulling a JJ on us, and we'll talk about that here in a second.
I know, right?
Go ahead.
No, it's good to be here because it's been forever since I streamed with you. It's nice to see Jason, and I haven't seen Danny in a minute, so that's good too.
Yeah, what's up,
Drew? But no, it's good to have a break from politics. My channel is obviously I'm one of the black sheep of the fellowship, as it were, because I'm one of those political channels that I say what the hell I want when the hell I want. YouTube don't like that too much, but it's good because I will always put it out there 100% for people. I don't shy away from controversy or things that need to be talked about. I have those discussions, and they're hard to have for some YouTubers, but I'm willing to have them because it's what's going on, and it involves the welfare of not only the American people but the world.
He's frozen. Give him a second to see if he comes back.
Cool.
It's close. There you go. Okay, you froze there at the end.
No. I was going to say, the stuff I talk about, it's worthwhile because it not only involves American people, but it involves the world. So, this is stuff we all need to be cognizant of and talk about. But it is nice to have a break from that and be able to just kick back and talk about this. And I know my opinion's probably going to differ from some people's when it comes to this topic, but yeah.
Okay. Very good.
The lady that played Uhura, she died?
Yeah, she did.
Yesterday, I believe. Was it yesterday or the day before?
I think it was yesterday.
I know Bill Russell died today.
Yeah, I know.
Bill Russell,
Pat Carroll died today too.
Who?
Yeah.
She was the voice of Ursula in Little Mermaid, among lots of other different things. So, yeah.
Well, lots of stuff going on today. Ric Flair's
And
having his
Wally,
last match.
Yeah, Wally died, or the guy that played Wally on Leave It to Beaver died 3 days ago.
A few days ago.
After 5 days ago, they put it out that he had died, and then it turned out he hadn't, but he was in really bad condition, so it was kind of a wait and see thing. So, all right, up next, go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you, fun piece of pop culture. Yeah, Ric Flair's having his last match tonight. It's going on.
Is that like really for sure his last match?
Last match is Shawn Michaels.
The guy's what 70 late 70s. I would hope that's his last match.
I thought he was 100.
Yeah, he's 79.
It's crazy stuff. So, all right, up next, it's the Austinator. Austinator, tell everybody about your channel, please.
Yeah. Hi everybody. I'm the Austinator. I don't really do much on my channel anymore, mainly because I'm working, and also, I just don't really feel like uploading. I'm the resident Marvel hater now. I also am the resident Star Wars hater now, and I just hate everything now, So I mean, yeah, that's just me. I mean,
you're Marvel hater, but your avatar is Spider-Man. Okay.
Listen, this is just the thing I'm known for, so I'm just gonna keep it like that. You know what? I'm gonna change my profile picture, Danny, because you're right. It is Spider-Man, so I'm gonna change it to something a little bit more proper.
Oh, Triple H.
And yeah, gotta have the power of Triple H. Gotta have the power of the burial. Yeah, I do a bunch of stuff. So if you just want to sub, do so. If you don't, it's okay. Chris, thanks for having me on, man. This is gonna be interesting tonight.
It will be, I think so. So he's used to it, guys. So don't worry about it. I purposely made him last. He's used to it. I think that's what he likes. And earlier today, he wanted to talk about his Uranus or his anus or Uranus. I don't know. But anyways, here's the thing. Live. Go ahead.
I did not want to talk about Uranus. I want to talk about Uranus. Otherwise, as they call it in Futurama, they renamed it Urectum. So the reason why I'm talking about Uranus is because I have a science show on YouTube. I don't talk comic books. I don't talk movies. I talk science, astronomy, astrophysics. Anywhere from black holes to the solar system. If you guys want to ever look up at the night sky and you go, what the hell is that? Check out my channel. You guys might learn something. This is my Twitter channel right here. This is my Twitter name right here. Since my YouTube link is not on there, you guys can check out my profile. Sometimes I tweet, sometimes I retweet. Hey, it's lottery.
Okay, well, with that said, guys, we are missing one person, and I'm sure by now everybody who watches this channel knows that JJ died back in November last year. And we had actually just done the first one a few weeks before he died. And I just wanted to put it out there that we're not forgetting about JJ at all. JJ wanted us to do things like this still. JJ was actually the person that I talked to, and I was saying, it'd be really cool to do something like that. And I can't remember if he came up with the name or if I came up with the name or if we were just talking about it and it just happened. But he was one of the people that helped me, as with many of my shows, come up with the Star Wars Senate. And so this show will be forever dedicated, as many of my shows right now are dedicated to JJ because he was a great guy. And he will be severely missed on this channel. And I know on all of our channels he's missed, but he'll be missed by this group too, because we do a lot of talking about his favorite subject, which is Star Wars. And that is what my background is for. This was one kind of like what he had, so this is in honor of him. With that said, guys, we're going to get right to this. Pick your side. That's what I got to say. Pick your side, because if you're a prequel fan, you probably think this is a stupid topic. And if you're not, or you like the original trilogy more, you might not think this is a stupid topic. So, I want you to argue your case, yes or no, for why you think the prequels did or didn't break canon of the original trilogy. So in order to help us with time and all of that stuff, I'm going to bring up my timers, my lovely timers. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to start, and we're going to start with 5 minutes. And after the 5 minute timer goes off, we'll go to the next person, and then we'll kind of talk amongst ourselves with it. And maybe, just maybe, we can come up with an actual answer to this question. We'll have to see. Maybe we'll take a vote at the end like a Senate should. Maybe we'll see if it works better than real government. I don't know.
Anything worse than better than real government.
Well, you say that, but here's the thing. Voting, you never know. You may have somebody that walks out or decides, I'm not going to be at the vote today. I'm just kidding. All right. So, Danny, we're going to start with you. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I don't know what happened to my damn timer. All right. Here we go. 5 minutes, Danny. We're going to start with you. Your time starts now.
I'm a fan of the prequels, and I don't think that they broke canon. Reason being because I think George Lucas was so in tune with the Star Wars universe that he wrote stuff. Maybe people didn't like what he wrote, but it's from his own creation, it's from his own mind, so he knew what he wanted to do. And like we said earlier, behind the show, that I just watched Empire Struck Back just last night. And kind of cringe when you see Leia kissing Luke and stuff, and it had a little, I guess, sprinkle of romantic feelings. But then, of course, in Return of the Jedi, Luke figures out and knows that Leia is not his sister. Is his sister and not a lover, which he found out, I guess, whenever Darth Vader revealed to him that he was his dad. So, having said all that, I think when George Lucas did the prequels, he went back and he systematically put things together to tie it to what we currently see now and what we currently know now. And I'm just trying to think about, I don't see where he broke canon at all. If I'm being truly honest, I like two of the prequels better than two of the first three of the trilogy. Yeah, I do. Much better. My favorite is Revenge of the Sith. I think it was close to being a masterpiece as possible, in my opinion. I know others probably say, what? But I like Revenge. That's when I can watch over and over and over. Now, the last three, we got that's all I can say. I don't know. I don't know what that was. And I think that's the lack of George Lucas not having his hands on that, not listening to what he said, not following his treatments, just doing whatever they thought the fans wanted to hear. It's a total clusterfuck. But to stay on point with the question, I do not believe the prequels in any way messed up canon. I know some people don't like Attack of the Clones because they say it is kind of slow, and some people criticize the young Anakin's acting skills and the grown-up Anakin's acting skills. But I think they were meant, I think I read or heard somewhere that George Lucas meant to be that kind of static or whatever descriptive word you want to use, how he acted, because that's what he wanted for whatever particular reason. I don't know why he wanted it, but I think I heard that somewhere. Don't quote me. But again, one thing I hate that he didn't do was didn't show us more Maul or show us more training of Maul. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting. But to just put in a nutshell, and I don't want to keep talking and being redundant, but I really don't think, like I said, I'm really trying to think different scenes and run the movies through my mind. I don't see anywhere where I really had a really big problem with George Lucas' vision and connectivity and staying on point with far as being canon from the prequels to the original trilogy. So I'm going to say no, it does not break canon in my mind. And that's what I'm going to say.
All right, very good. Remember, guys, you are not by any means held to speak for the whole 5 minutes. You can break off whenever you think you've made your point. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate that. Very nice. I think you made some good points there for yourself. Very good. Up next, we're going to go to Jason. Jason, are you ready? You got 5 minutes. Go ahead and talk now.
I don't think that the prequels broke canon so much as they bent them. It bent canon a little bit, because you have pieces, yeah, again, in the original trilogy, that when you go back in with the prequels, they don't quite line up. But I think the biggest issue for me is the fact that Anakin was so much younger than I expected, based on what Obi-Wan had told Luke in the first movie. You know, when I first met him, he was already a great pilot and all of this. And I'm thinking, okay, well, then you met him when he was in his 20s or in his 30s or something, not when he was 8. So that to me is probably the biggest bend in the canon. But you have a number of instances where there are inconsistencies. But you also have to remember that George Lucas is making it up as he goes along with all of this stuff. And I'm not sure that he even really was all that concerned about canon, to the point where there's this legalistic, everything has to line up just so, because it's like you mentioned with the kiss. You know, at that point, he didn't know that Luke and Leia were brother and sister. That came later, and you know, all of these pieces start falling into place. And you know, when you get to the prequels, you've got Rick McCallum there as a yes man, and nobody's telling George no on anything, so George can do whatever he wants. I think the prequels would have been better if Anakin had been older, but I don't think it breaks canon so much as it just kind of squeezes it and twists it a little bit, and you have to look at it a certain point of view, and it lines up okay. But you know, it's not as egregious a violation of continuity and canon as the sequels are. So,
Okay. All right. Anything else?
now,
May I ask him a question, Chris?
Go right ahead.
You don't think that the skill he displayed in the pod racing would qualify him as a pilot? Because didn't they say that no human could have that skill set unless they were force sensitive?
I think, well, if you accept the notion that Lucas was making these movies for 12-year-olds, then sure, it holds up. But from a logical story standpoint, if you say pilot, you're talking about somebody who's got experience, and he was already a great pilot. That implies that he had a certain skill set that Obi-Wan noticed. He's got all of this talent already. I'm going to add to it by trying to train him in the Force. So that to me tells me, when he met him, he was 20s or 30s. He already had experience as a pilot, as a warrior, somebody, a soldier, or whatever context you want to put him in. I wasn't expecting a kid.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have a question? Anybody have a question for Danny? Anything? No. All right. Nindroid, 5 minutes. Go right ahead.
All right. For me, it's more like they bended it a little bit. They didn't break canon though. George Lucas really just was like, all right, what can I add on? Because even George Lucas, like everyone would say he planned it all out. The fact is that he constantly went back and kept on rewriting stuff like, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that differently, I'll do this. He kept on changing stuff, and he even did it with the edits to the special editions in the 90s. So George keeps on changing stuff. So for me, it doesn't really break canon. The only stuff that people could really say is like Obi-Wan has a droid R4 in it, where in A New Hope, Obi-Wan said, I don't remember owning any type of droid and all of that. And also Obi-Wan doesn't remember R2 or 3PO or, like all that stuff. Also, now I know this was before Clone Wars because we're just counting the prequels, but in A New Hope, he also said that they were friends, which I did not get that in the prequels. They were more like brothers or father and son. That's what Anakin even said in Attack of the Clones. But anyway, I don't really think it does break it though, because none of us knew what Clone Wars, what the clone army was like. They didn't go in depth about that. Darth Sidious, like George Lucas always planned that, yeah, it was gonna be Palpatine's rise to power. That's what the prequels were all gonna be, and that's what was stated in A New Hope, and even in the earlier drafts of A New Hope. Sith, the term Sith does not break canon because that was actually in a deleted scene of A New Hope, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's not breaking canon. Like the whole Boba Fett with Jango Fett thing, that doesn't that bends canon a little bit, but not really. You know, Anakin is still trained by Obi-Wan. Like, it doesn't really break canon. It just bends it a little bit. And we're like, okay, they're filling in the gaps. Like, all right, they're just trying to push us a little bit, you know? But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. So my answer is no.
Okay. So we got 2 definite no's and 1, yeah, not really, but maybe. Okay. I will say this first off. You bring up the friends thing. I still think if they're brothers, if they're like brothers, it's still a friendship.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think that really bothers anything.
Yeah, I guess.
But I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying though. So okay. Next, Ostinator.
Yes.
Yep. 5 minutes. Time starts now.
All right. Now, as much as I'm not the biggest Star Wars lover right now, I gotta say the one thing that I've always been consistent on is that I freaking love the prequels. I know that might be a controversial opinion for some people, but I gotta say, I will even say this: I like Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. I know not a lot of people do, but my God, they're just so entertaining, you know. And does the prequel trilogy break canon? No. I agree though with both Jason and Android that yes, I do think it does bend the rules a little bit. It doesn't completely break it because the prequels did its job, which was to showcase how the Empire rises up to power. We see Anakin's fall to Darth Vader. We see all of that. Now, we don't know if George Lucas had the prequels planned out beforehand. He probably, if he did, there was probably an outline of what he wanted to do. And there's going to be changes here and there, but there are inconsistencies. Because I believe there is one main one where Obi-Wan says in Empire Strikes Back that he was trained by Yoda, which was clearly not the case in Phantom Menace because Qui-Gon was his master and not Yoda. So it's like, I could forgive that because maybe he could have also been talking about maybe Yoda was also training him in areas that we don't know about. I mean, we don't know, but I'm not.
Yoda trained him how to be a Force ghost.
Well, that was yes, but I would also say that was also Qui-Gon as well. If you want to be. Because Yoda does say that Qui-Gon was also going to teach him in Revenge of the Sith. So I'd say both. So Yoda does train him, but I would say a majority of it was Qui-Gon as a whole. So I wouldn't necessarily say he trained him completely as a Padawan. And yeah, like everyone else said, like when Obi-Wan sees R2-D2, you know, after everything that's going on in the prequel trilogy in A New Hope, he's just like, oh, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Like, to me, that was a little weird. I can forgive it because he's old and he's got old age, or maybe George didn't know, because George didn't know 100% everything at that time. So it was like, well, of course there's going to be inconsistencies because usually when you do prequels, if you don't have them planned out ahead of time, you don't really know what's going to happen beforehand. But I do think the prequels, at least for a good majority of it, gets down everything that George at least brought up. like they did the Clone Wars. They did that in episode 2. You know, they introduced that, and that was also a big thing in episode 3. I other than the inconsistencies here and there, I personally don't think it breaks canon. It actually, I think it does a pretty good enough job, even though there are inconsistencies.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
I have a question for Austin.
Go ahead.
Austin, you mentioned about the droids, owning the droids. Well,
Yes.
Since Obi-Wan is considered canon, and we've all seen Obi-Wan, of course, he was hiding out on Tatooine, overlooking and watching Luke, a very cautious person. So you got somebody come up, even somebody who knows, like, hey, these droids here, you're going to be suspicious automatically because Luke does not know who exactly Ben is in relationship of why he's actually there. So of course he should be cautious about running any droids because when he's pinning off, he goes, "Okay, friend." He called R2 friend. He didn't say droid or anything. He referred to droid as friend. So do you think that could be part of the canon or affect the inconsistency of your arguments?
I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily say it would be inconsistent, because I mean, that's actually a good question. If you address him as friend, I don't know if necessarily that would have broke any. I'd just say, it would just be like, oh shit, you know, a long time, good to see ya. No, I wouldn't say it would break it. I wouldn't say it breaks anything though. I'd just be like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know, type of thing. So
Okay.
I'd just go with that.
Anybody else?
Um,
Well-
Go ahead.
oh,
Go
Okay.
ahead, Ninja.
all right. Well, I was actually gonna say, this is one example of the whole bending thing, which Austin actually brought up with the whole Obi-Wan thing. The prequels did state that all the younglings get taught by Master Yoda.
That's
at
correct.
first.
That is
So that's one of the things where the prequels bended it. It's like, because in Empire it was clearly stated it was meant for Obi-Wan got taught by Yoda, you know, but prequels was like, all right, well, Yoda teaches all the younglings and all of that. So that's just one example of them bending it, not breaking it, just bending it.
Another one too is Anakin made C-3PO and R2-D2 was very loyal to him, and now you don't think Darth Vader would have some kind of override signal or something? I mean, they don't even know him and he don't know them. So to me, that was a little wonky too. Especially in Clone Wars, where he disobeys direct orders from the Jedi Council and saves R2-D2 because he never wipes their memories.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Okay. Hold on just a second, guys. I'm going to let Drew, you're going to go. You got 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. Go ahead, Drew.
No, I mean, I gotta say, like, I agree with pretty much, everybody so far. I don't see that the prequels really caused too much of a problem. I don't think that they upset the apple cart at all. I mean, Lucas made the prequels, so you're basically talking about somebody that, essentially wrote the book. So what you're doing is just filling in backstory. And if it took, I guess, liberties with established principles that fans wanted to come up with when they saw the original trilogy, I can see that, but I don't see that the prequels, and I've watched all 3. I don't see where they violated anything or committed any heinous act of ruining continuity. I didn't see that whatsoever in the prequels. Matter of fact, I like episode 2 and episode 3. They're 2 of my personal favorite films. I thought Phantom Menace was a snooze fest. I mean, I've fallen asleep watching that movie before. So, but other than a few parts of it, I was just like, oh, I'm awake. Okay. But no, 2 and 3 were awesome. But I didn't think overall that the prequel trilogy really interfered too much with the original trilogy. And then, all the problems that you've run into continuity wise have been created by, post Lucas projects, which are, all basically Disney canon. They've fiddled with it enough to where they've screwed up a bunch of things, but the prequels certainly haven't. The real conversation to be had about screwing up canon would be the all the Disney stuff, because it has largely screwed up a lot of canon. All you have to do is ask Alora. She'll tell you in a nutshell what exactly that they've screwed up. So
yeah, to a point, but I'm going to make this very clear right now, and I mean no disrespect by that, but there are people in the YouTube community who constantly point out what Disney has done to screw up canon. I'm not going to say they haven't, but they use EU a whole lot, and I am going to put it out there. George Lucas himself didn't bother with the EU too. He only asked that if they've used his characters, that they kept it in line with his story. That was the only thing he ever asked. He never had any care to use the EU. In fact, he has been noted many times that the Mara Jade thing, he did not like the add-in of that. Because
remember Chris, pre-Disney, we had all those different, that canon hierarchy where, they had different tiers of it. So there was that, and I understand your point with the EU.
I think some of the other thing too is that some of the EU probably was considered semi-canon by the Lucasfilm licensing people without necessarily George thinking that it was canon. So
and I think that's
the different aspects of that as well.
Yeah, but I get really this point of using the EU to prove breaking a canon when the EU is in itself loosely canon. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a big EU fan. I mean, I wish they would have done a movie for something like Splinter of the Mind's Eye, or taken the sequel trilogy that they did in the books, the EU, and done that instead of what Disney did. Like, Disney took like a whole bunch of stuff that had been in the EU and just kind of put it in a blender and just blended it all together, and then looked and said, "Oh, look, there's still good meat. Let's take that out and throw it away." I mean, let's be honest.
I look at like the Obi-Wan stuff. I mean, it was the Rebus show, and there was there was really no good reason for Rebus' character. It didn't make, other than the fact that, hey, look, we gotta throw in another, we gotta play the minority card and throw in this other character, and oh, by the way, a lot of the series is going to revolve around her. So it's like there really was no need for that. And they took a lot of what it seemed. They gave they took a lot of Obi-Wan's courage away, which was, I can understand him losing his way a little bit, but
we can discuss that. I think the next time we did go, because we're going to go sooner than we did. We've been 7-8 months now since we did the first one, and I do want to do one of these on the Obi-Wan series. I personally disagree on that because I actually love the Obi-Wan series, but we can discuss that at a later point. Okay, and did you have anything else to do about the original trilogy?
Well, no, when it comes to prequels, I mean, like I said, largely I like the prequels. The only point that has been made that's been really good that I can kind of get on board with is, some of the droid stuff might be a little wonky, but that's minor. That's really minor. But I don't see that the prequels interfered with the original trilogy.
Elihu, 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to argue as somebody who has not read any of the books, but somebody who's seen the cartoon, the original, the prequels, and the 3 wannabes, and the Ewok Christmas special. The prequels, we did not know the backstory of Darth Vader. We did not know how he became Darth Vader. We did not know the backstory of the story of how the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin developed. We don't know how the relationship of Anakin and Palpatine developed. We didn't know any of that when the first original came out. Sorry, let me retract my statement earlier. I did read one Star Wars book. That was the Star Wars. That was novelization before the movie came out when I was a kid. The first couple pages, I remember, actually described the prequel movies. It was, if you guys actually remember, the first 2 pages to describe the backstory. Then it went to into Star Wars. That's why I got excited to claim I gotta see this movie when it comes out. Yeah, I was still that kind of a nerd when I was a kid. The idea about Boba Fett being the origins of Boba Fett, we didn't know this. We didn't know this. We didn't know that we didn't know his story. The prequels basically did not mess with any of the original Star Wars canon. There's just some hit and miss that George did that fans did not like and respect, because he was expecting Jar Jar to be a huge character and Darth Maul to be a side character. The fans, when the prequels came out, the fans said, "No, George, we want a 180. Fuck Jar Jar. Give us more Darth." So it was a hit and miss when he was doing the prequels. But I know that when he did the prequels, Greg Proops said that the best thing about the whole thing was meeting George Lucas, because he believed that he knew what he was doing with the vision of the prequels of the Star Wars. The pod racing, the heartfelt vision of killing of his mother dying. This was great storytelling that George did, and it has no implication of messing with Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. It has no implication of messing with that. Yeah, my final opinion, basically, yeah, it did not even mess with the canon. It's still canon. Sorry, I'm texting back and forth sometimes. Sorry.
No, you're fine. All right. So you say no. All right. So mostly we're at a no stage here, and then some of you are, well, one of you, Jason, is at a, yeah, it bends. And I think Ostinator also used the term bends. And basically that's where we're at, right?
Yeah, everybody said what I wanted. Everybody said what I wanted to say.
All right.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, Danny probably thinks he knows what I'm going to say. So,
Don't have a clue, bro.
okay. Well, here's the thing. I tend to agree with most of this. I mean, to be honest, it's ridiculous because there's written proof from the Lucasfilm archives, from the Skywalker Ranch, in a book that was released not like a year or so ago. I can't remember how long ago. That stated that he had nothing of the prequels figured out. He had names, and it wasn't until after Empire Strikes Back that he came in and he says, "You know what? This is what's going to happen, and this is why it's going to happen." And it was after that they formulated that Luke and Leia were going to be sisters. They were going to be Darth Vader's. They were going to confirm that that Luke and Leia were Darth Vader's kids. And he really pushed after Empire Strikes Back this idea, this story. And much like the original trilogy, it started out like the Journey of the Wills. It was a very quick draft of, like, I think 5 pages, something like that. And he began to expand on it. And he pulled names like Mace Windu and made it Mace Windu. And he kind of took all this amalgamation. The problems I have with it is things that have already been mentioned. When you say that Yoda trained you, it gives the implication that was... Listen, when you start a job, depending on your job, many times they'll say, hey, here's John. John's going to train you. So you go out and next 2 weeks you're with John. But let's say one of those days is John's days off. Well, John won't be there, so they put you with Bob. Now, Bob trains you for a day. Well, Bob trained you, but he didn't train you. He was there. So you don't mention it the same way when somebody says, oh, yeah, so who's training you? Well, John's training you. You don't go and say, Bob trained me, or Bob's training me. You would say something along the lines of, John's training me, but yeah, I mean, Bob, I was with Bob one day. That's kind of how you do it. So the way that he says that Yoda trained him is in no way indicative of the way they played it out in the prequels. Literally, all you see is advice from an older, more wise Jedi. That's really all he's doing in the prequels. He is not training him. He is, hey, you have to do this. And so I've always taken issue with that. Now, I don't hate the prequels, so I don't go and say I'm not going to watch them because of that. Now, people bring up I don't remember owning a droid. His point is, I don't remember owning. Now, you can say R4 was his, but it was actually the Republic's, and it was probably assigned to him. So that's like saying that a rifle that is assigned to you when you're in the Marine Corps or when you're in any other branch, anything that's assigned to you is not yours. So depending on what it is, when you see it again, or something like that, you're like, well, I don't remember owning that. So what we learn from the prequels and from the original trilogy is Obi-Wan is very good at what I would call basically politics. He learned the game very well. I don't have to lie, but I can sure as hell not tell the truth. And so there's a lot of that going on, which will be possibly somebody's argument on my training, because there are a lot of those things. I think that he was one of the best star pilots. I think what he's trying to do is he's forming this bond with Luke. He knows he has to get Luke on his way to his path in life, and he's trying to find a way to not give away the fact that he really knows what happened to his father, not give away who his father is, all this stuff. So there's a lot of this stuff that I think actually plays out in George Lucas's favor. Now, George did admit that he screwed up a whole lot of stuff. One of the biggest things, and I'll get to it since I'm almost out of time, it's the Force. That's the biggest thing for me. You take the Force and take it from something mythical and mystic, and you actually ground it and root it in science in the prequels. This is the biggest and worst travesty of the difference between the original trilogy and the prequels. You take something that is supposed to be mythical and magical that only certain people might be able to do, and now make it something that it's in everybody. Everybody has a certain percentage of it, but only higher percentages with it. So they literally ground it in science, and I think that was a horrible call on his point. I would love to know his pure belief of that. But that comes down to the fact that George Lucas said he never liked exposition in the original trilogy. He didn't want to give you anything. He just wanted you to strap in, go. And that's how he did the original trilogy. And then he went and broke his rule and over explained everything. So that is, I think, the thing that is the worst, and not necessarily a break of canon, but definitely, I mean, it's like taking a twig that's brand new. You can't break it because it's just too new, but you can sure bend it all the way around. So I think that's really what this comes down to.
I don't agree with that necessarily, because all of us that are healthy and got all our fingers and mind and stuff, some of us just can't play a guitar. But some of us can get on that bad boy and tell we got the ability to play it, but we just can't do it. So the midichlorians is just
but that's not grounded in science. That is mystic.
It's called training.
And there's some bit of training too.
If you train your body well enough, anybody can play a guitar. You train your mind well enough, you can learn another language. It's about training and learning how to use your skills and use what you have. So the metachlorians, little metachlorians that are in your body, it's basically you train to use that.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't like that. I mean, I think that was the worst move he made because it was literally something that didn't need explanation. You didn't have to change the fact that you needed to train to learn the Force. You didn't have to change that because Obi-Wan says it very clearly in the original trilogy. It's what binds us. It surrounds us. And so he does kind of explain that it's in everything and it's around everything, but it's very mystic. It's basically in the original trilogy, it's Christianity. Listen, there's no proof, absolute, that God exists. It's a faith, it's a belief. And if you believe in it, then it's true to you. But science is going to look at it and say, hey, this is what we know. And I think that it was better left alone in a mystic standpoint. That's my personal thought on that. And I'm not stating that that's, the be-all, end-all. I'm just saying that is my biggest complaint between the original trilogy to the prequels, is that you take something, and maybe it's because it's so long after the fact, and all the Jedi have died out, that now that is what it is. Because when you go to the sequel trilogy, it's even more kind of mythical, because it's like nobody knows what the hell it is anymore. I mean, because everybody who did use it's gone. Maybe that is what it is. It's just over time it loses that science and it becomes mythic, maybe. So,
because in New Hope they call it the old religion. That's what they refer to in Darth Vader.
Yeah. And Jason, you were going to say something?
Well, Chris, I was going to take exception to your characterization of Christianity there, because there's and I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but there's a number of historical and archaeological and scientific proofs that do support the notion of, at the very least, intelligent design. Or if you want to believe in God or not, that's another level of that. But as far as the prequels go, you talk about the midichlorians being your biggest thing. My biggest gripe about them is the fact that Lucas violated one of his other philosophies, because he's on record in an interview basically saying that the special effects are supposed to serve the story, and if you let the special effects hijack your project and you lose your story, then you don't have as good of a product. I'm paraphrasing wildly there, but in the prequels, you have all of this new technology that they had for industrial light and magic. Oh, look at all these new toys we get to play with. Now we're going to go show them off. And I think the story suffers from that standpoint, from a creative standpoint, because there was so much emphasis on the visual effects and all of this new biggie wow hokum that we could do with ILM, that we didn't focus on character. And that's where the prequels, they don't necessarily lose me, but I'm not as interested in the prequels as I am with the originals, because the originals gave us characters, and you have all of this other stuff that's incidental to that, but the story centers around the people that are in there, whereas your prequels, look at all of this, look at all of those clones, all of this computer generated stuff. And I think Lucas went a little bit overboard, and he didn't have anybody. He didn't have a Gary Kurtz to say,
"Whoa,
let's think about this. Let's dial this back a little bit." You had Rick McCallum sitting there going, "Yeah, we could do that."
Yeah, I know. And one of the things is, like, I think even Lucas probably lost track of the way he even helped himself in the original trilogy, because when he did the first movie, he knew he could launch it. But he knew he personally, as a director, was not the person to build the characters to the next level he needed. And that's why he went after Irvin Kershner, because that he knew this was the guy. And it turned out to be right. Now, really quick, I understand where you're going with the religion thing. I just wanted to say, I probably said it in the wrong way. Put it this way. If you believe in God and religion and believe in the stories of your particular religion, because we got many of them, you don't need science to prove it to you. You believe it. Science goes out and they do try to find the answer to, hey, what's going on? And yes, you're right. There is intelligent design found by science. I'm not debating those things. I'm just saying science finds the answer. Science tries to find the answer and doesn't look to faith for it. Faith-based people just, they build it, it's there, they believe it, and that's kind of thing. And I liked that the Force in the original trilogy was, if you believe it, it's there and you can use it. And I much rather liked that than the science-based side. And maybe that's what I mean more to the point.
I'll agree. Chris, a scientist does not find answers; they only ask questions. That's what a scientist does.
Well, yes, but they also come up with hypotheses, and then if they find it to be true, that becomes fact and theory. But anyways, okay. So overall, I believe we all believe that this is at worst, it's a bending of rules, and like Jason said, maybe overzealous because he had all these toys and had nobody saying, no, wait, let's slow down, let's think about this. So let's talk about some of the things that actually really helps the original trilogy because of what we see in the prequels. Let's talk about how the prequels actually build on the canon that was started by the original trilogy. So does anybody want to go first on that? Does anybody want to talk about those?
I can talk about Anakin. How when,
go ahead.
When Ben Kenobi first was talking about Anakin and Luke, he was talking about how great a pilot he is. And everybody's going, wait, the kid wasn't a pilot, he's a pod racer. We got to remember, he grew up with him. He taught how to fly. He saw him fly his ships. He saw him destroy different destroyers. He knew how great of a pilot he was. So that's not breaking that part of the canon, describing Anakin, Luke's father, as a great pilot. That answered that question. And it proved that he actually was a good pilot. Not an okay pilot, but a damn good pilot. Because every time Anakin went in the fighter, he kicked ass. He was never shot down. He always shot people down. So that actually was solid there.
He never shot down.
Oh, sorry. No, I would say sorry. He was shot at. But 99% of the time, he hit his mark. You see, every other pilot in the Republic, they're faulty. They're getting hit. They're crashing. Anakin doesn't. So that part actually helps establish the canon about him being a great pilot. The backstory of Darth Vader. That's what I want to say.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else want to pick something out from the prequels that helps the original trilogy's canon?
I'll do it.
Okay. Go ahead, Ninja.
The world building, I think that's like the most obvious one, where we saw these different, planets and creatures and all that. It really helped that there's more species out there, and there's more. Yeah. Well, that's another topic, honestly. But with the world building, and there's different planets, more worlds to explore, and all that. That it opens the galaxy up. It truly shows that this is one huge galaxy. I'll say that.
It's that one right there.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything that helps build the original trilogy's canon?
I think it's interesting to see Palpatine's arc in this, because when we first meet him in The Empire Strikes Back, he's just this specter in a hologram, and we don't know very much about him other than he's the Emperor and he's Darth Vader's master, and that takes a great amount of power just by implication, because we've seen how dangerous and how ruthless Darth Vader is as a villain up until that point. And he's been the main bad guy, you know, even when you have Grand Moff Tarkin there in the first movie, Darth Vader is still this ominous, you know, looming figure. And you know, in the second movie, he's even more of a threat. And then you introduce the Emperor, and the Emperor becomes this big, you know, becomes the big bad guy in Jedi. So it's an escalation of threat from both of those characters that you see in the prequels, where the beginnings of that come from with regard to Palpatine. You know, he was this senator, and the ambition of the politician is a trope that we've seen in a number of different stories across, you know, countless different genres too. And it's not just this particular instance where you see, you know, somebody gets a little power, doesn't mind having that power, now wants to get a little bit more, and at a point eventually says, I can't afford to get rid of this power. I can't lose this power. I'm going to have to hang on to it. So what do I do? When they start scheming and manipulating and these machinations behind the scenes to hold on to that power, and we end up where we are now. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, we're talking about Star Wars still, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. No, and I have a question for you. Talking about the politics of the prequels, there are a lot of people out there of the original trilogy fanship that didn't like the prequels because they said it had too much politics. What would you say about that?
I think I'm of two minds about it. One, you can see the internal policy. For me, anytime you get a story that's got politics in it, there's a difference between internal politics of the characters in the story, you know, your situations and what's going on within that story. If your characters are political as part of that, you know, it's as long as it's organic to the story and it's fine, it lives there, okay. If you're bringing in external modern era, you know, now politics and trying to apply it in whatever allegory you're trying to do with your movie, sometimes it gets clunky and preachy. I didn't see so much of that in the prequels as a lot of people wanted to see. There's that whole "if you're not with me, you're against me" thing, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's quoting George Bush. He's making George Bush the villain." Mm-hmm. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, you know, the original Star Wars movie was an allegory for Vietnam. In mm-hmm. some cases, you know, you listen to some interviews for Lucas, and it was a response to Vietnam. In other cases, it was World War II. And yeah, I think he mixed and matched. He took various different sets of Green Army men and put them out on the blanket fort and said, "Okay, here's my story." I don't think he had any kind of a coherent, this is Vietnam type of thing. He's pulling elements from lots of different things, you know, Hero's Journey, and Kurosawa and Westerns and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But when you get to the prequels, now people are a little bit more sophisticated audience wise. And so, you know, you've got all this stuff that's going on with stuff outside in the real world when these three movies were made, and politics is getting a lot more divisive, a lot more polarized. Not like it is now. I mean, now certainly it's a mess. But this was the beginnings of that in the late '90s, early 2000s. So you have this, and yeah, this is how democracy dies with thunder supplies. It is a political story, but the politics are organic to the story inside. It's self-contained, and I don't know that it's as much that you could pull from the outside and say this is what he's talking about as you could maybe for the original movie or for a lot of the stuff that's out there now. Because now it's all over the place. I mean, modern real world current year politics have infected everything.
I will say this. I agree with everything you said. I think that there were definite jabs at his political views that he placed in his movies. But I will say this. Biggest difference I see from, and it's happened more increasingly year by year, is that while people like Lucas or Spielberg or I can't remember his name, Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick, they were able to put in their own thoughts about politics or things going on in the world, but it didn't come across like, hey, believe what I have to say, or this is what I think. I think that they did a very good job of mixing things in there and still telling their story without going off on this tangent of, hey, I don't like this in the world right now, and I'm going to point blank bring it up in my movie and break every other fourth wall I can to get my point across. It just was there. And so if you heard it and you took it that way, fine. If you didn't, oh well, it didn't matter to him. Okay. Anybody else have anything from the original or from the prequels that helped the original trilogy's canon? Anybody? Nope. Okay. Danny?
I don't have anything to say.
I can't think of anything.
I think one of the biggest missed, and we're going to talk, this will be the last thing we talk about, biggest missed opportunity to help the story that may have helped something towards the original trilogy from the prequels to the original trilogy was really, it was in the books, but it wasn't in the film, was actually the Darth Plagueis stuff. If you read the books, there's a lot of stuff about how Palpatine took power from Darth Plagueis and how when we first see him, and Jason, you kind of skated on this, about how at the beginning he's a politician. He is a politician and he's a part of the system, and then he wants this, we're not really sure for what reason, but he wants this to be in charge because he thinks he has a vision for this whole thing. And when he gets there, and he gets more power as he goes. He's like, you can't. I mean, at the end, he literally is telling the Jedi, "You can't take me out. You can't do that. I am the Senate. I'm everything. You can't do that." And so, but I think the biggest thing is we never got to see the Plagueis stuff, because the Plagueis stuff really explains how it was all designed and everything was beautifully planned out. And I have to admit, the way they do it, it's believable that everybody around him doesn't think it's him. It is very, I mean, as the viewer, where it's going. You know who this person is. Everybody knew Palpatine was. It's just we never heard Emperor Palpatine or
Darth
whatever. Yeah, we never heard those names, but we knew who he was, mostly because of the actor. But I think leaving out some of that stuff about all of that, it could have been sprinkled in all three films leading into it. And I think that was a big missed opportunity. Anybody else got a big missed opportunity that would have helped lead it more into the original trilogy?
A history of the clones.
Clones?
Yeah, the clones. I mean, basically, Attack of the Clones. That when that first came out, I don't watch movie trailers. I get a basic synopsis because I got spoiled a lot of times with plot points, plot devices, movie trailers. So I just need to get plot points. When I heard Attack of the Clones was coming out, the first thing I thought in my mind was, "Oh, good, we get a clone story. We get the history of the clones." Yeah, we got about 84 minutes of clone story. He actually kind of took too much time on that. If there was actually more development in the character of the clones, like why do they want it? Why did this certain Jedi order the clones in the first place? What was the importance of this? All we got was a little snippet of that. Yeah, we got the formation of the clones, we got the story of the clones, and training and everything, but we only got a snippet of the history of why they were actually ordered and created. I was confused when I first came out, because after seeing it a couple times, I actually understood that, but there should have been more explanation, a little cross between the clones, like why are they so momentum for the Empire? Why can't they just hire anybody else? What's the story behind this? Why did they actually need them to fight for the Empire? What was so crucial about these certain type of warriors that was different from the rest of them? Attack of the Clones kind of grazed upon that with Jango, but we don't know really what Jango's skill set was. We don't know what made him so special about this. If we had more in the story about this, maybe we could understand why Darth Vader chose to end the clones. why the film does in the first place.
I think they're trying to do that with the Bad Batch. I think they're trying to show that transition between the two, why they went from one to the next. But okay, anybody else?
Well, to your point, Chris, about the Darth Plagueis stuff. Wearing my writer's hat for a minute, one of the things that we as an audience know, and this is one of the fundamental problems of prequels, is that we know where it's going. You know, we know where what's going to happen next, and the reveal that Palpatine becomes the Emperor. All of us who had seen the original trilogy, we already knew where that was going because it's the same actor, and you know, you have Darth Sidious and all this. And within the story, when he starts talking about Darth Plagueis and, you know, the Jedi who could hold off death and all of this, we still don't have any real clear indication that he's the villain. We know he is externally, but within the story, we don't know that he's the bad guy. And then when there's the reveal that he's Darth Sidious, that he's the bad guy, by that point, we don't need the Darth Plagueis stuff because he's the bad guy. Now, where do you put Darth Plagueis after that? If you're going to sprinkle it in, really the only place that I could see where you would do something like that is after you've got Maul, and there's two. At some point there in the discussion of the history of the Sith, you could mention Plagueis, but I don't see where you could justify putting a whole lot of time with a bunch of exposition for a character that's not even there.
Okay.
You could do it,
I can see that.
but you'd have to do it very carefully, and I'm not sure that Lucas had the structure in place that they could support it.
I was going to ask you, do you think it was something that he personally, because, and let's be honest, he was not the greatest writer in the world when it came to on screen stuff. I mean, the guy was brilliant in story, in idea. It was he needed people to come behind him and say, okay, well, I mean, we hear stories all the time about Hamill and Ford and Fisher all talking about how when they would read these lines, they go like, nobody in the world talks like this. What in the world are we doing? And they begged him to take certain lines out. Ford was notorious for literally sitting there going like, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. That's why his was probably the most normal stuff they had in the whole thing. But do you think that is more to the point that Lucas probably didn't have an idea of how to do it, or was it just I don't need it there?
Just as a guess, I would think that Lucas didn't think it was necessary because it's backstory, but it's not backstory that you have to understand what's going on. Because if Palpatine says, "Have you ever heard of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" and and there's the hook. Well, he knew because basically Palpatine's reeling in Anakin at this point. You know, you want to stave off death. You want to keep your wife from dying. You want to protect your family. And it's not about Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis is the bait. You know, and that's what he's using to bring Anakin into his sphere of influence. And it's not, I was the apprentice to Darth Plagueis, and he taught me how to stave off death, and then I killed him. You know, you don't have that reveal. And by the time you see that he's Darth Sidious, you don't need it. Because you're like, aha, he was Darth Plagueis' apprentice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else have anything that they consider a missed opportunity from the prequels to help build into the original trilogy?
Why are there only two Siths? Well, there's a shitload of Jedi supposed to be running around, but why are there only two Siths?
But that is established actually, and God, here I go. I'm gonna break my own rule here. That's established as an Old Republic, like early on thing, and I would say that I don't know this for sure. I'd have to look it up. I think even Lucas had mentioned that was something that was decided long before this group. Because they do make mention.
That would make
apprentice, because Yoda even says, always there are two, a master and apprentice. So they established the rule of two in the first movie.
Code forbids it. Yeah, but why do they set up by any kind of code. That
It's already there.
guys.
It's already decided. That's the thing. That's why I'm saying it was pre-built into Lucas's story that was already an established fact. Now, breaking my own rule, in the EU, we established this much earlier than these stories going on, but it is predetermined by Lucas. That's a Lucas thing, and I think somebody went back and said, okay, let's build on to this.
To me, it makes sense because that's the only thing that will make them comparable to the number of the Jedi, because the Jedi, in a sense, is like the Jedi. I mean, the Force is a battery. If a bunch of people plug into the battery, then that's going to weaken the battery, so to speak. But if only two people punch into the dark side of the battery, then that's going to make them as strong, and that's why Palpatine was so strong, and he could hide stuff and see future stuff, because there was only two of them tapping into that source versus the thousands of Jedi tapping into the light source, which made them weak in certain aspects of it.
Okay. That's a good point. All right. Really quick.
It's got chlorides, though. Did they actually move chlorides? Blood transfer. Come on, blood transfusion.
All right. Really quick. For those of you who were here at the beginning of the show, Gary, pop culture mindcast.
I got a bounce.
Pop
Chris.
culture minefield. All right, Danny, you want to go ahead and shout out your channel real quick then one more time?
I'm Danny AK Comment Chat. You can find me on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights on this channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My show is a chaotic conversation tomorrow night. Anzo's following is Chaos List, and Chris is the Rule of Three. Really enjoyed this. Can't wait to the next one. And thanks for the invite, Chris.
Really quick.
Drew.
You say no as far as it breaking canon, right?
No, it did not break canon, in my opinion.
Fine. So yours is a no. All right, very good.
All right, later, Eli Hoop. Enjoy. Also later, Mr. Jason. Later.
Danny, good to see you again.
Remember, the wife is always right.
Pop culture minefield. Gary just messaged me home. Daughter came back with me. She's shaking her head. His daughter got in a wreck. So, but she's okay. They're home. Everything's good. So just in case you were here at the beginning and you saw, I don't remember if he was here, but he was here earlier. He was supposed to be here today, and things happen. We all understand that. Okay. So we got Danny's. It's a no. So let's talk amongst ourselves here. We're going to take a quick vote. Yes or no? Did the prequels break canon of the original trilogy? Jason?
I'm going to give it a qualified no.
Okay. Nindroid?
No.
Elihu?
9.
9. Drew?
No.
Austinator?
No.
And I'm going to go with Jason, the qualified no on this. That's as good as you get. It is unanimous. I think some people think that I flat out say it breaks canon. I just have severe problems with some of the choices that Lucas made, and I think a lot of that comes down to is he broke his own rules for his storytelling and his writing from the original trilogy that actually made the original trilogy better. Because
I was going to say, Chris, it's like you were saying earlier, though, and this from business and everything else. Sometimes there's idea guys, and they have the ideas, but they're not the execution guys, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And that's why he had people to delegate to, largely to execute some of the stuff. And hey, it's fine. I still don't think there was anything in there major that technically killed it. I mean, you can sit there and say, maybe the inconsistencies with the droids, so on and so forth. But yeah, I don't think there was anything in there that really screwed things up or threw a wrench in the works. Like I said, it's on the other end when you got into sequel stuff is when I think that happened.
You mean Disney stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, Disney crap? Yeah. That's what I fucking think.
No, and yeah, I think that he broke his rules and he knew what he couldn't do and what he needed help on. And maybe it was because he was still fairly fresh to the whole thing. That by the time he came around, he's like, I can do this on my own. Maybe, I don't know. But okay,
Well,
so
you
we
got to
got
remember, Chris, if you write something or you create something, you are allowed to play fast and loose with it because you make the damn rules.
That's not necessarily true all the time in Hollywood. Scripts get changed all the time. So unless you actually sign for creative differences, creative control, then yeah, you have complete autonomous control of your project. But a lot of times,
That's what I'm saying. He had creative control.
Yeah, if you do that, then you do whatever the hell you want with the script.
Yeah, but he's also said in an interview that one of the things that he set out to do at the very beginning of his career was to not be beholden to the studio system. And the success of Lucasfilm essentially made him the very thing that he didn't want to do, which was become a studio.
But
And
that's why
so he's painted himself into a corner with regard to Star Wars because he wasn't able to go do anything else. I mean, Indiana Jones, but you look at anything else that he did, Radioland Murders. Radioland Murders wasn't a success. Willow wasn't enough of a success. There was a plan for that, and he's got his Tuskegee Airmen, Red Tails movie, and he's sitting there, toward the end of his career, basically saying, "I'm just going to go do the movies that I want to make, and I know nobody's going to want to watch them because they're not Star Wars."
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for sure people want to blame and want to say that he was tricked into selling Star Wars. He flat out said he was only making the sequel trilogy he had in plan because he wanted to finish it. He just wanted to get it done and be done with it. And he even to this day states that he felt he was tied to Star Wars and he had other things he wanted to do. And so every time that people come up, well, Bob Iger tricked him and lied to him. Well, maybe Bob Iger lied to him. Maybe he tricked him. But what I always have said is that I think he was looking for other outlets to come in and help him finish the trilogy that he was starting and he was thinking about. And one day Disney happened in. Bob Iger's talking to him and says, "Hey, so what are you doing?" "Oh, you're doing a new trilogy." "Ooh, well, if you want any help, we'll join you in an effort to make this. And somewhere along the lines, maybe Bob Iger's like, listens to him and says, "Well, he's not really into this." So, George, how much do you think you'd sell the property for? And George says, "Oh, I don't know, $4 billion. And he's like, "Sold." And Lucas is like, "Well, fuck, sure."
Well,
because
yeah, that's not exactly how I did, because Iger had been talking.
No, but
they've been talking. I mean, Lucas had been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah,
and Iger had been courting him, and Lucas actually had done an interview. He was looking at the landscape of what would be a good fit for his particular mode there with what Star Wars was, and Disney was the best fit out of everybody. He could have sold it to 20th Century Fox. That would have made sense, given that Alan Ladd Jr. gave him his start. But this idea that he was tricked into something, you're right. He was ready to go. He was ready to dip out and say, "I'm done." But I do think that Iger lied to him about the expectation that we're going to make the sequels you want to make, George. We're going to take your ideas, and even admitted in his autobiography that he might have handled that better.
Well, sure. Well, let's be honest. And Lucas knew the territory. He probably knew he was being gaslit. He handed over everything, but he also knew that he wasn't. I think he said a lot about this after the fact, but I think that's more his maybe remorse that he didn't just say, "How about this? I'll sell it to you, but I get to stay on and I get to have control of where these go." I think that's more his remorse of not adding that caveat into it. I'm not positive that he believed.
I think the white slavers comment when he was talking to Charlie Rose probably gives you a good indication that he felt betrayed by the deal.
Hey guys, I'm not sure if you're reading the project, but Drew has to go.
Okay, I'm sorry, Drew. I'll let you go. Why don't you go ahead and give us your channel information and all that one more time, please?
Well, yeah, you can catch me youtube.com/Supreme Heretic. Tuesdays we do United Resistance, as it says in my background. That is the latest in politics and current events. So you don't want to miss that. And then late Sunday nights, actually here in 2 hours, I do a paranormal stream, and where we talk about unexplained phenomena and all kind of interesting stuff with that. So tonight's topic will be the Loch Ness Monster, and that's going to be fun. It's myself, Immortal Coil, and the Good Voice Guy, aka Sir Talks a Lot. You may know him as Corey.
Sorry, true. This article came out that a scientist found some evidence of a possible identification that the Loch Ness Monster is real. Have you read that?
That is exactly why we were talking about it.
Okay.
What is it? What is it? What did they find?
Go ahead, Drew.
No, what did they find?
I think it was a bone the guy found. The scientist found. Examined a bone.
Yeah, possible connection to existential proof of a possible creature like the Loch Ness Monster. So we're going to discuss that, and that's going to be a fun topic. But thanks for having me on, Chris.
Not a problem.
Good chatting with everybody. Austin, you and I will have to catch up later and talk some wrestling. Jason, take care of yourself. Elijah, take care of yourself. Mindroid, good streaming with you. And Chris, I will catch you on the flip side, man. Don't be a stranger.
All right, man. Drew, thank you very much. You be safe and have a good time on your stream tonight. I'll tune in because I like that stuff. I need to come on sometime. Just let me know what you're talking about. I'll come over.
All right, man. Take it easy, brother.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yep.
All right.
Later, Drew.
So we were going to start wrapping this up, so we'll go ahead and do so since we have people dropping off. That's fine.
Oh, hey, we got some breaking news here 3 hours ago.
Ooh.
Good Morning America, Diego Luna will be on tomorrow morning. Exclusive first look at the all-new trailer for Andor.
Oh, yeah.
If anybody's interested.
I'll watch it. I mean, I cover all that stuff because that's what we're supposed to do, isn't it?
I made it through 3 episodes of Show Me the Baloney, and I dipped out. I was like, I'm done. This is terrible fan fiction. It's not even consistent with itself. It doesn't make sense. As a writer, I'm twitching the whole time. It's like, that's not that you can't Yeah.
All right, guys. So we're gonna go around. We're gonna start down there with the Austinator. Austinator, tell everybody about your channel one last time, please.
Yeah, I'm the Austinator. I don't really do much on my channel right now because of work and all, but I do occasionally do streams such as wrestling streams, and also me and Angry Care Bears, we just talk movies. I think this next one I'm doing is we're reviewing the Matrix Revolutions. So, check that out when you can. I do some gaming videos here and there, and for the most part, I show up on everybody else's streams. But yeah, just sub to me if you want. Chris, thanks for having me on.
All right. Very good. And glad to have you on every time you come on. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Elihu, tell everybody about yourself and your channel, please.
First, if you guys want to enjoy erotic SpongeBob fan fiction, make sure you guys follow us here. I have a science show. I haven't been doing it in a while because I've been having problems with streaming my computer, but it's back. So, Wednesdays, 12 noon Pacific time. What's up with the universe? I talk anywhere from basic astronomy to complex physics, from black holes, cellular formations, CRBs, even to our solar system. If you ever look up at the night sky and you go, what the hell is that? Check out my channel, you might learn something. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my Twitter feed right here. Sometimes I tweet, sometimes I retweet. Hey, it's lottery. And I can also be found sometimes on Chris's channel on Tuesday nights. Also on this Wednesday night, PJ's channel, Orville Nation. It's confirmed we are having a very special guest, but I'm not sure if it's going to be on Wednesday night. But a science fiction legend. Somebody's worked in science fiction for a long time. Great man. I cannot say his name yet, but it's been confirmed he will be a guest. Stay tuned. You guys can follow me on Twitter, find out updates about that.
Very good. All right.
Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Not a problem. Nindroid.
All right. You guys can personally find me on my own YouTube show, which I have been recently not active on, where I do edits. I'm currently working on episode 9 still. It's taking forever to write, rework, all the stuff, but it will get done eventually. And Galactic Chat is supposed to return soon. I don't know when, because just like Austin down there, I have work a lot, and I was off today, so whoopie-doo, so got on here. But thanks a lot, Chris, for having me on, and it was a great show.
Excellent. I'm glad to have you as always. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Jason from Sci-Fi For Me TV. Go ahead, Jason. Tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, Sci-Fi For Me TV. We are on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, with the TV channel. Also, we've got, let's see here. What did I do there? There we go. TV.2, which just launched, is going to be our upload replay channel. And you can catch that, both of those channels over here on YouTube. I do want to encourage people to go over and find us on Odyssey, though, because we're trying to build up those numbers over there. We're on all of the social media accounts, all the different social media platforms, including the alt tech. So we're not on TikTok, though.
Are you on OK?
Are we on what?
OK.
OK?
Yeah,
that's a new one. I haven't heard about that one.
It's the Russian form of YouTube.
No, we haven't. I haven't heard of that about that one.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we're on. I've got the screen. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Gab, Minds, MeWe, Parler, Getter, Locals, all of those different places where you can find us. So.
Oh, OnlyFans, gotcha.
No. We've actually talked about setting up an OnlyFans for the dogs, for the office dogs, and a majority of it is just going to be here's the dog sleeping in this bed, and now here he is over in this bed.
Here's looking at his butt.
Here he is eating, and here he's up on the couch. Yeah, stuff like that. We've joked about it, but who knows? It could do really well. I mean, Tim Pool's doing Chicken City, so who knows, right? Anyway, Christopher, thank you very much for having me. It's a good conversation.
Chris pulled the JJ.
Sorry, it died again. Anyways, it's good to have all you guys here. I'm glad we can do this again. It's been so long since we did the first one. But of course, loss of JJ and other things just kind of pushed it back. And so, the other day I reached out to all these guys and said, hey guys, let's do this again. Figure out a topic. I know Jason put a topic in the private chat. I think that might be one of our next ones, if not our next one. I like the look of it. I'll read into it a little more. And we'll make sure it gets out to everybody so they can look at it too. But we will be back, guys, much sooner than the 8 months that we were gone this time. I originally wanted to do this like once a month, once every other month, twice a month, something like that. It was kind of like, we don't have to do it all the time, but hey, when we come up with it, I'll be honest, this is what this came out as. And again, I go back to talking about JJ. JJ and I were talking about Star Wars one day, and we were talking about how, man, when we get into, like, somebody mentions Star Wars and something that's controversial on a stream that has nothing to do with Star Wars, and then it's a 15, 20, 30-minute sidebar about Star Wars. And it's like, wouldn't it be great if we just focused on those comments, those questions, those statements that make us talk for hours? And that's kind of where the Star Wars Senate thing came up with. So that's why we are here, guys. That's why we do this. We do it because we love Star Wars too. And in some ways, everything is still maybe. I don't know. But I am Chris Knight. The Real Review 3000 is my channel, and this here also, Chaos Central, is another one of my channels. You can check us out again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock right here. Danny's show tomorrow night, Chaotic Conversation. Tuesday night, Anzo Hodges has the Chaos List, and on Wednesday night, I have the Rule of Three with the Final Five Factor Fiction. Guys, check that out. Anyways, with that said, guys, thank you everybody who is here tonight. Thank you everybody who watched. Thank you everybody who will be watching. We greatly appreciate everything and all the support. And with that said, good night, guys. Bye.
Later, weirdos.